Hi marine biology students. In this video we're going to talk about ocean circulation and how water moves from one ocean basin to another. So let's talk about ocean circulation. Some of the differences seen in different parts of the ocean are due to circulation patterns. Circulation can occur in the form of waves, tides, currents, and gyres, which are large circular currents that are found in ocean basins. Oceanic circulation is significantly driven by wind patterns. And wind is ultimately the result of being driven by solar energy. Because the Earth is rotating, both winds and currents are affected by the coriolis effect. Because the Earth spins continuously, anything that passes over the Earth is deflected. In the northern hemisphere, winds and currents are deflected to the right, whereas in the southern hemisphere, winds and currents are deflected to the left. Since the Earth is spinning, it causes this deflection of wind and currents. This deflection often causes currents to travel in circular patterns called gyres. Here we can see some of the major oceanic gyres, including those in the North and South Pacific, North and South Atlantic, and also within the Indian Ocean. Now, because of the hemisphere that these gyres are found on, the gyres on the northern hemisphere circulate in a clockwise direction, whereas the gyres in the southern hemisphere circulate in a counterclockwise direction. Because of this current, the west coast of the United States will have primarily cold water from the Arctic coming down along that coast, whereas the east coast of the United States will have warm equatorial and Gulf water going up its coast. So why do these gyres happen? Well, sunlight heats the air above the equator, and that air rises. As that air rises, it becomes an area of low pressure, and other cooler air rushes in to fill that open spot. This movement is the source of winds. Nearshore, winds are also generated, as there are differences in air temperature over land versus water. The air over the land heats up quicker, and so will rise and draw ocean breezes onto the land. Likewise, if the air on land cools down, but the ocean is still warm, you'll have breezes from shore blowing out to sea, often during the evenings. Winds that are continuously created in the matter described by the equator are known as the trade winds. When we look at different latitudes, the westerlies are formed in the mid-latitudes, while the easterlies are formed closer to the pole. Yet both the westerlies and the easterlies are less consistent than the trade winds. As solar energy heats up the air at the equator, that air rises, and that area of low pressure is filled in by cooler air coming from other places. This forms the basis of the trade wind. Now we can see multiple areas of pretty consistent wind formation, along with areas with very light wind formation neighboring them. It's these wind patterns that promote the formation of these oceanic gyres. Despite being repeatedly mixed by winds and surface currents, the ocean is stratified into 3 layers. The surface layers are from the surface to about 200 meters. This layer stays well mixed most of the year, and these are also the surface currents which are moved by wind. Deeper than 200 meters, in fact from 200 to 1500 meters, we have our intermediate layer. A noticeable feature of the intermediate layer is a sharp temperature change, or thermocline. The water is more uniformly dense here, and so there's very little mixing. After the intermediate layer, we have the bottom layer, which is below 1500 meters, and there's very low mixing, and it's normally uniformly cold down there. Sometimes this cold, deeper water will upwell in certain areas, but for the most part, it is consistently denser than the surface and intermediate waters. Here in this diagram, we can see how salinity varies in the surface waters, but less so in the intermediate and deeper layers. We can also see the temperature change, known as the thermocline, that happens throughout the depth of the intermediate waters. And we can also see how density can vary between those layers. In some locations, large volumes of water may sink or rise. Water sinks due to changes in temperature and salinity, and this is known as downwelling. Downwelling brings gases from the surface to deeper layers of the ocean, and this becomes very important for these marine organisms living at these deeper layers. Here we see a seasonal downwelling event, where during the summer and even the autumn, the surface temperatures are too warm and therefore less dense than the deeper waters. But in the winter, as the surface layers are cooled to temperatures even lower than the deep water, those surface waters will go down, taking with them dissolved gases like oxygen. Areas of upwelling come from currents that push deeper waters towards the surface. Nutrients are much more plentiful in these deeper waters. They have been fortified with nutrients over time while they've been down deep in these lower layers, and so often areas of upwelling are beneficial for surface organisms. It's an influx of nutrients, and usually there will be a lot of algae growth, and that can drive whole food webs. Now, when we look at the global patterns of upwelling and downwelling within the ocean basins, it actually turns out that all of our ocean basins are connected to each other in what's known as the Great Ocean Conveyor. And this Great Ocean Conveyor is driven by thermohaline circulation. The areas of deep water formation include the Arctic Ocean and North Atlantic, and also around the Southern Ocean, where areas of upwelling are going to be in the Northern Pacific and also in the Indian Oceans. Water can pass all the way through this global conveyor system, but it takes over 1,000 years to do so. So ocean water cycles through this system anywhere from 1,000 years to 1,800 years. Water that is being upwelled right now in the North Pacific had last been surface water more than 1,000 years ago. Likewise, the deep water being formed right now in the Arctic and North Atlantic and its associated dissolved gases will not have contact with the ocean's surface for some time. There are concerns that human-mediated climate change may have an impact on global ocean circulation with unknown and potentially significant consequences. So understanding the system of global ocean circulation is important as we try to provide insight to the rest of the world. So the world oceans really are connected. Well, that's the end of this video. Something I want you to think about before our next video is, have you ever noticed how waves seem to get larger as they come into shore? We're going to talk about that. All right, I'll see you in the next video.